everybody. This is Servant Decoded with Alicia, Ant, and Liz, and we're here to dive into season 3, episode 1, titled Donkey. We did figure out what donkey means. So if you listen to our last video, we were talking about wondering what that might represent, and Ant did some digging, and Liz did some amazing interpreting. So do you guys want to, let's just start there and talk about, the title of the episode and what that might mean.
Like I mentioned, they showed that painting of, I guess, Balaam. What was it? Balaam and the ass?
Balaam's donkey or
Balaam's donkey.
Yeah, Balaam and the ass. Yeah.
So we're saying that, like, in the power, is it a parable story?
Numbers 22.
Numbers, there you go. In the Numbers 22,
yeah.
Balaam speaks, I guess, the word of the Lord. And having been able to see this angel, and Balaam finds himself like regretful and like I guess challenge put upon that he like had technically they frame that as a sin to not have noticed the Lord in your presence. It could be kind of allegorical to Leanne being aware of her place in spirituality, or being more aware of spirituality. Whereas those around her are like protecting her, but they don't really know like maybe the depth of what they're doing because they're so distracted by the reward of the baby, Jericho.
Yeah, they're on a road to Israel, where and the donkey keeps stopping, and Balaam's whipping the donkey, but the donkey is stopped in fright of this angel that's in the road, and. Right. God eventually tells Balaam that he's not paying attention, and the donkey is the saintly soul,
like a pure image of like an innocent kind of
and clear-eyed, and seeing what's in front of him.
Right.
Whereas Balaam is focused on this reward and loses sight of the forest for the trees. It loses sight of what's good and not good. And as you noted, kind of focused on this reward. And so we kind of put together that Leanne, much like the donkey, is a servant.
Right.
And she's the clear-eyed one, aware of danger. In this allegory, Balaam whips the donkey 3 times. And I was commenting on when Leanne comes down at the beginning of the episode and says, "Why is the door open?" 3 times.
Yeah.
And the family's just so focused on Jericho. He's eating the shore.
They have what they want.
Right. They're on the reward of Jericho and not focused
like the cost and the process of like how they got there. Process, the ritual or
the cost that they still have to pay.
They're just here for the now.
Yes.
They're like almost not even aware of the thing that, I mean, not that there's a clear defined like thing that they have to do, but there's probably something that needs to be like, there's always a trade-off.
Right. Ain't nothing free.
Exactly.
So that's our interpretation of the title of this first episode. And I think that would portend that as the opening credits, that the season's going to be about the family having to go up against this cult and the danger the cult poses.
And like they're like apparent severe like vulnerability, because Leanne keeps saying like, oh, they can sneak in and you won't even notice. Like,
right, they're patient and they can slip in and you won't even notice, much as Leanne did at the very beginning.
Well, and if we're to believe that, I mean, we talked a little bit in our most recent podcast about whether the cult is already inside, right? And we referred back to lots of the sounds and noises that we hear when I was doing my annual pre-season rewatch. I really was just drawn again to all the different noises and the pipes and things that are banging around, and that happened so repeatedly. So I definitely think her saying that, why are these things open? What's going on? We even in the finale of season 2, we saw open windows, and
Hmm.
it felt very much like people were moving through there without the knowledge of the Turners in one way or another, whether it's in the flesh, right, where people are actually coming in and out, or if it's
Like psychically.
yeah, just that they're already inside. I
Hmm.
felt like they've been inside. Now I know, Leanne saying that they can kind of get into your life without you realizing it seemed more like from now forward, but I think they're already in there.
Hmm.
Well,
What do you guys think?
all those shots, all those God's eye shots, through grates,
Yeah.
through, from above. Even in the very beginning of this episode, we see Leanne from above going to the bathroom, and then,
Yeah, all the bird's eye shots. Yeah, which
Yeah.
also makes me think of the mannequin. So I think, and anybody, if I'm wrong or I saw this incorrectly, please let me know. But when we open the episode, so the episode begins and we see the moth, right, that's in there in the room, and it's at the window. She gets up and she goes over there, and we reveal that the mannequin is in the corner, but the mannequin is watching her. So I noticed, kind of like one of those paintings. Every time she'd be in a different place in the room, the mannequin would be turned and watching her, which was eerie, but I think also could be sort of another symbolic example of them being watched or followed. Now, if we wanted to be literal, the question is Leanne moving this mannequin, or what? But anyways, I just noticed that, and I thought that was interesting and creepy.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And she brought it down
To move it
to her room.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the things to bring down from the attic to join you in your room.
I think she found comfort in it though previously.
Yeah.
Because didn't she like associate it to her mother, or like
Yeah, she
kind of a camera object? I'd have to go back and rewatch again, but yeah.
We should try to take notice of if the mannequin's clothes change.
Yes. So the moth. So let's talk about that. So the moths seem to be a pretty prevalent plot point in the episode. So what do you think these moths are representing? What is the importance? Why was it so focused on?
Well, they come off the body of the wall, which I guess we assume is Josephine for now, until proven
Yeah, for now.
elsewise. So I guess maybe the guilt of that, even though it was a good thing to protect yourself, like they're coming from the wall and they're reminding her, like, oh, this happened, and you still have to deal with whatever this means. I mean, like, grand scheme or that body specifically. And then she couldn't bring them back to life.
Giant leopard moth, indigenous to parts of North America. We see it bang against the window, and we see it crawl out of the hole above the donkey painting. And we see all of the moths that Liam has tried to resurrect, noting that she's lost her powers or is afraid that she's lost her powers. And I saw it throughout the episode. Not only is Leanne dressed in black and white, these types of moths are white bodies with black circles and swirls decorating their wings. And there are similar motifs in the wallpaper, on lamps, in shots with Leanne. I think we could also look at that as the cult, infiltrating, or, their presence. There are many, we see a few, one here, one there, and then they're all over that corpse.
Right.
And they just come rushing at Leanne.
And if they originate from the corpse, it would be like the cult being activated by her murder.
Exactly. There's a price to pay.
And it's not going away. Like, whatever has to happen is still going to happen.
Right. It's coming.
And she has less control over it now than she did previously because she's away from them. That's why maybe she can't bring them back to life.
Did that seem to me? It seemed like it was bothering her, but
It seemed like it was confusing
confusing.
or
Yeah,
like frustrating, but then she does throw them away. Like she does kind of give up on it. So I don't know if she's been doing that for the entire 3 months.
right.
Because then she brushes them out of the cabinet.
When she's
No,
getting ready in the morning, you see a little bit of OCD type behavior, the way
Yes.
she lines up the toothpaste and the brush and the toothbrush. And she's got every moth that she's presumably tried to resuscitate and failed at, under a glass in the cabinet.
Mhm.
And then after that little pep talk by Dorothy saying, let your guard down, don't worry, we're safe, it's okay, it's been 3 months. Leanne is then cleaning the house as the Turners are at the shore, and she gets rid of all of the moth corpses and cleaning up. And I didn't know if that was meant to be a little bit more OCD or if that was just more her trying to will herself into not worrying so much. I'm going to get rid of all these insect corpses I've been collecting to remind me that I don't have my powers. I'm going to drink some wine and relax. And then, bam, danger is there.
She even has trouble being. I mean, I guess not being used to like standard social convention. She's very awkward with Toby. She's very like kind of strange about the swimsuit.
It's like she's always trying to be what she thinks that she's supposed to be, or she's trying different personalities on for size. Kind of like you might find, a teenager doing early on as they start to get older and they're starting to try and figure out who they are, right? Or I feel like we do see a lot of that with Leanne. It's her trying to figure out who she wants to be now that she feels like she has more power over that.
But it seems like it's immediately undermined with like, the pending penance of whatever the cult
I agree.
has expected from her. So it's like trying to do something and then be immediately somebody breaks into the house and she's like proven wrong, whether or not it's related. It's just like another thing.
There's a line that speaks to that when Leanne and Julian are on their walk, and Julian says, "You might have noticed I'm trying to do things a little differently these days." And I think she says, "You mean trying to be a good person?"
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, she says, I don't like you pretending to be something that you're not."
Yeah, she definitely gains. There are these moments where we see her asserting herself more in various ways, and that
or at least trying to,
right.
Whether or not it works. Like he's not really convinced, but
yeah,
I think it feels more like a proper member of the family.
Sure.
She doesn't have to be as demure. She can speak up more. She's finding her voice.
And they're like the only people she has, really.
That's right. Yes.
Speaking of the time, we've talked a little bit about this 3 months that's passed. And
there's a lot of debate going on. Is it March or September? March or September?
Yeah. So it should be March, right? And after posting about this and getting a couple responses, somebody said that the show itself finished filming in July. So the fact that the phone would say September does seem to be more of a purposeful choice then, which brings us back to what the heck is going on with time.
And that's like almost a whole year later.
Yeah.
Which I think
worth noting, obviously we don't have the answer to that yet, right? But I do think
if there even is,
if there is one, but certainly it's worth noting, just as yet another thing to add to the list of timelines that don't entirely make sense or line up.
Just because he's so specific, you would think something easy is changing a date on a phone for.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make a point to show it and show it that specific,
right?
Yeah.
I feel like something like that would be caught.
There's reason.
There's a reason. Yeah.
We're not just crazy.
Not. We talked about this a little bit last season, that there are little oddities and
right.
Mhm.
You know, a room being here in one shot, a room being there in another shot, things not lining up.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that just goes along with it, that there's something strange.
You think it's like it could be like a missing time kind of thing, like not meant to be specifically like a reason, but just maybe if that gives that feeling of like,
Right.
sometimes people when they say they get abducted, they have like a missing 90 minutes or like a few like maybe it's just meant
Missing
to
time.
feel it might just be meant to feel strange as opposed to be a specific.
Mhm. I do think it could also be indicative of everybody being on their own journey. And
Mhm.
perhaps whatever time we're in for one character is not the same time that we're in for another character.
Or it doesn't matter
Or it doesn't, yeah, or it doesn't matter. Right.
because I'm so like out of it or I'm so engulfed in
Mhm.
my baby or yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think that also goes to the idea of rebirth, resurrection. You know, Leanne talks about when she's speaking to the burglar, you know, we weren't reborn just to serve other people.
Mm.
You know, resurrection is a common theme.
Hmm.
And
Right.
if you, if you die and come back to life and die and come back to life, time is going to be wonky. It's going to be different for different people.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm trying to think what else stands out. I think there were some fun little moments that,
Hmm.
obviously I think we all found the pirate song to be amazing.
Oh, that was fantastic. They were so good.
I love I loved that was our introduction to Vera too, and her reaction to it, and Julian's little apology before he jumped in and
But he
started
did do
singing.
it,
He
which
did.
was what,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Which I love too, because I felt like that's a side of Julian that maybe wouldn't always be revealed to a girlfriend or to even
Anybody,
anybody except for maybe Dorothy, if it
right.
was him and her privately. So I do think that also kind of speaks to maybe a shift within him as well. Just one of those things that goes, okay, he's different.
Hmm.
Sean, Dorothy, and Julian all seem a little lighter
Yeah.
Oh,
in
for
spirit and energy.
it's a contained, kind of strained lightness, but yeah.
Yeah, well, with Julian, definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
I wrote down a quote. I thought that was interesting. Julian says, "What's wrong with your face?" When was that?
In the morning when they're feeding Jericho his first meal.
And who does he say that to?
It's Sean, because he's smiling. What's wrong with your face?
Okay, I was trying to remember, but it was all out of view, right? Because we were sort of feeling from
Right.
Leanne's perspective, so we didn't see them. All we
They
heard
did
was
that.
Julian say, "What's wrong with your face?"
They did that with him too. They have him. Why did they? I don't know. I thought that was strange that they filmed it that way. When he goes to get Leanne to take the walk, he's behind the wall, and it's like half the
Yeah.
screen, and they have that little conversation that
Yeah.
didn't seem to mean much, but
Yeah, when he's telling Leanne that he's going to be the one taking her for the walk,
mhm.
there's a lot of shots that are not the way that you would normally see them.
No,
Right.
he's just behind that wall. He could have walked into the room, or they could have,
It's just different perspective, and that may be coinciding with the idea that we're watching from a different point of view, from someone that's observing, from above somewhere, or
it's just meant to feel like, just feels very like compacted, even though it was very bright and like open.
well, in the morning we're seeing it from Jericho's
Mhm.
POV. And then
Oh,
there's that,
that's interesting. That's true. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
yeah,
I
because you
hadn't
get
noticed
Dorothy's
that.
face right up in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, right there while they're feeding him. Yeah.
And not that it matters, but that's absolutely two different babies.
Yeah, well, twins.
Totally different eye color, totally different.
Two very cute different babies. What was with that line?
It's so quick that
Little Italian boy.
That's another good point. Yes, like a little Italian boy. That what?
Who knows?
Who knows
People
exactly?
eat. People.
Who knows?
You know, Turner is not a
Traditionally,
traditional
no.
Italian name. You know, it could be that Dorothy was speaking to him being his father's son, you know, having a foodie palate.
That's kind of what I felt. It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Context. It was so weird.
Yeah.
Just like when Dorothy says, we need the air, we need the sunshine, we need to feel the sand in our shoes.
Mm.
Who says no?
Yeah, nobody wants sand in their shoes. Yeah.
No, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
No one needs that. You want to feel sand between your toes,
Yeah.
not your shoes.
Yeah.
Another oddity, I think the other night we were calling it a robot glitch or a
Right. Yes. Yeah. Little word choices that have
they're
become very
odd.
yeah,
Kind of
word choices
removed,
have become
yeah.
very famous on Servant, right? For you're going, okay, well, this could sound normal, but this could also not, this is strange at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that famous line about local humans
Exactly.
in the pool.
Right. I also thought it's interesting how, you know, I reflect back to the beginning of the series and through the first season, where as the house was falling apart, there seemed to be this urgent need to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now this house is still falling apart and perhaps in a more obvious and worse manner, but nobody seems overly concerned about it.
Not yet, anyway.
Right. Not yet. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that also speaks to their level of distraction or perhaps their level of denial or ignorance.
Denial. And John waves it away. You know, that damn hole in the basement, when the contractors couldn't fix it, I called the city and they said they would send someone out, you know, whenever.
That's just confirmation that's never going to get fixed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine, guys, can you imagine having that going on in your basement and just being like, they'll fix it at some point.
We have the baby. It's the baby. It's fine.
And mind you, this is allegedly 3 months down the road.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, oh, it's been like this. Like,
no, it's a pool of standing water that bugs used to come out of. Like,
and bubbles, like it's freaking lava in a volcano.
Now it's hot, or it's like activated or something. It doesn't look hot. It looked more like somebody trying to breathe, or like they're like blowing like.
Ooh, oh my God, Antho, that is interesting.
I don't think people are down there, but it just didn't seem like it was boiling to me.
No,
like
but
it just seemed more like breath.
Yeah. Well, but she did have that thing when she got buried in there.
That hole that Leanne was once buried in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll get around to it.
You know.
When FaceTimes Leanne, when she's eating her lunch while staring at the hole, the bubbling, muddy hole.
I mean, Sean has sat there drinking wine and eating and staring at that hole. There is so much staring at that hole in this show. I mean, we can't ignore it either. Clearly, there's some level of importance there.
It seems like meditative, I guess.
Yeah.
Sean says, "Oh, you're down at the hole again."
So yeah, that's a great segue. So why do you think that? Because to me, it really reads as her kind of hiding in the basement to some capacity. Why do you think that she's
maybe she knows
hiding?
Maybe she knows it was meant for maybe whatever ritual George was trying to perform. Like maybe she knows, like, I don't know, sometimes you go back to the scene of a crime. Maybe it's like regret of something or not letting people, I don't know. We don't have enough information, I don't think. Yes, but it could be something like that. Or just a contemplative like place to just be.
Yeah.
I read it as hypervigilance. You know, Leanne's very much on alert.
It could also be a vulnerable point for like entry of.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because perhaps that's great. That's true. Because perhaps she is looking for things that she knows she's supposed to be looking for, right? Like we wouldn't know to look for them, but she knows like, oh, these are signs of some harbingers of doom in some way, right? And so if I'm seeing these things happening, then I need to really pay extra attention to that. So that's I think it's a great point, and that perhaps that's what she is looking for, hypervigilant, looking or noticing the signs. Are those signs getting worse? That clearly she is looking for things and noticing things that she does not believe the Turners would notice because they don't know what to look for.
Right. She might be looking for familiarity. Yeah.
Sorry, they're so focused on Jericho that they're oblivious.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Again, nobody's going to work. I mean, I know it's like one day.
Right. No, you're right though.
Like,
again, 3 months. What is anybody doing?
It's not a new baby anymore. You got to be. Yeah. This is America. You don't.
Yeah. And I got to say this too. I know that I know that, sometimes when we're on, some of the message boards, particularly Reddit, because that's where the three of us kind of found each other and spend a lot of time. I know there's often some complaints about stuff like that, right? Is anybody going to work? Is anybody, doing this or that? But I think that that's kind of the point, right? Like this isn't, nobody's saying that like this is real life. We don't even know what we're looking at. So I think it's good to go, okay, yeah, ask those questions, but to realize that there's a reason. We just don't really know what that reason is. Yeah. It's not meant to be like a complete realistic portrayal of somebody's daily life. This is, there's a lot of sort of supernatural stuff and existential questions and, all sorts of things that are happening here that, I think it's not meant to be, looked at as, this is a literal linear story about this family and these are the benchmarks we should be hitting to tell this story. So go along with the ride is my point. Enjoy the ride of crazy.
It all adds to the supernatural tone of the show, and M. Night keeps saying that the show is focused in this house. All the action is meant to take place in or directly around the house. It's the center point for the story.
I know there was some speculation that we would quote unquote leave the house this season, but we're not going to. And from what I can tell, aside from just the way that we have before, which is somebody else leaves the house. Yeah. We see it on the phone, we see it on the TV, we see it, but we're not actually, I know that they go to that sort of, not fair is the wrong word, but you know what I'm talking. Spring on Spruce is the thing that the whatever. I'm pretty sure that's on their streets. I think it's either on their street or we'll see it the same way. We'll see it through a phone. Yeah. So I do think that they're going to continue with the motif of that claustrophobia, especially when you also look at the trailer. And one of the things that I love about the trailer is as it gets towards the end and the pace is picking up, they use that visual effect of the black, walls closing in, right? More and more, which I think is just another, further visual commentary on what they're trying to do.
Even using the phones, they're doing all these big things. Like they're following people and
right.
Having a vacation, but then you see it concentrated through just like this one little screen. Yeah. It's all very tight.
Yeah. And I do think that there's got to be something to the fact that the TV randomly turns on.
Well, right. We had postulated, or I theorized last night that maybe they have it set to whenever the news comes on, it comes on for it. Because Dorothy may have a segment in there somewhere. But that was an odd moment.
Well, this episode he's watching the stock market.
Earlier, but when Leanne's alone and the TV comes on and it comes on to the news, that's what alerts the burglar.
Right. I think
that's right after.
I was thinking about those newscasts again, and I feel like the newscasts, the purpose of them might shift a little bit with each season. But
a wider scope, or
but one of the things I was thinking could be, and again, we're just starting, right? So this is just based on this one specific thing, but I did wonder if, again, the newscasts are largely as it goes along and they get darker and darker, right? So almost like it's a warning or like a warning of bad things to come, or also a reflection of the fear and darkness within Leanne or within the home in general. You know, I
It could
think
very well be.
I think we have to look at the home itself as like another character in
Mhm.
Well, absolutely.
And it's falling apart.
yeah.
You know, in I think season 1, there were news reports about the roaming packs of dogs, of wild dogs, and then the dog invaded the house.
Mhm.
And last season there was the story about the shooting in the Marino house.
Right.
Leanne was tied to.
The one where they're underneath and she's under there and they're like in the tunnels, and they're talking about the tunnels of the city, and then they're also talking about getting the sludge out, and the, you know, and that really ties into the basement of the, you know, their house.
Yeah. So in both directly and indirectly tied to the Turners in their house. But they are, as you noted, they're all rather violent, or most of them are. When the TV popped on, I looked at the closed captioning, and it was talk about like a gang attack or another shooting,
and also the absolutely necessary fight in the chicken restaurant we needed to see for.
I also thought they could be serving as sort of like a like a way to justify the fear, right? So Leanne's, I don't want to go out and I'm scared of this and this, and you're going, Leanne, you don't need to be scared and it's going to be okay. But then the news comes on, and it's something horrible that sort of like, see, you know, this horrible thing did happen. You know, it's almost as a way to justify whatever fear is within them.
Yeah, it validates Leanne's
concerns. Yeah.
And in this episode, Leanne is hyper aware of every open window, every open door, every unlocked door.
Which I think also tells the audience, you should go back and look at all the times there were weirdly opened windows and doors. You'll notice that this is not, you know, new, right? This is just the first time it's really been pointed out by a character on the show.
They'll become maybe more aware of things, or
right.
Should we use this as the segue to talk about the burglar and how he got in the house?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yes.
She set that alarm, but it didn't alarm.
Well, because I don't think they have their alarm system set up to the skylight in the attic.
That's how you got in. But you heard when you heard a door. I guess he came from downstairs, so that makes sense. So it didn't even matter. Like it. Even if it didn't.
Most burglars don't choose to enter a house via climbing to the roof and.
No, that's not up there.
There's no way that burglar came into that skylight. Not to mention, why on earth would 3 months later that skylight still not be fixed?
Well, they've also got a bubbling hole in their basement.
This is true. No, that window was open. That wasn't broken.
You know, we know there's that basement area. Maybe he came in, you know, we know that they've come in that way before, right? Back when Wanda was probably sneaking in and out of the house. You know, so there were times where people came in and out through that basement. So I would assume that that's probably how he got in for real.
Yeah.
So he took the knife.
Yeah.
The dagger from under her pillow.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're wondering, was he a commonplace burglar or a cult member? Because at first it seemed as if Leanne was wrong. It was just a burglar.
I think it was the cult member. I think why would I you know, he didn't,
because you're not looking for, I mean, people do hide jewelry in weird places,
but you're gonna go under the pillow. Yeah, I mean, he went
did
to
they say
the room.
Did they say anything else was missing? Did they say like, oh, some stuff, like I forget what the police said. Did they say that?
No, I don't think so. And Leanne's the only one that discovers the dagger missing, but that was the dagger that Uncle George received
in the box from
dagger, right?
The Betamax tapes,
yeah.
He was back for it, you know, this guy,
right?
They sent somebody to come get it.
Yeah, there's meaning and power ceremony.
He was in black, so I think that also has to raise the question of, is this cult really an agent for goodness and God?
And wasn't it like the middle of the day? Like, you're not gonna like be setting up a ladder to climb a building in the middle of like
Yeah,
Philadelphia in the middle of the afternoon to
no. And then how on earth would the cop really like use that and believe that and try and sell that as being the way that it got in? The guy,
Right. So was the cop in on it too? Is he part of, their patient? They can slip in, you won't even notice.
yeah, I mean, there's, we've had hypnotism, so mind control isn't really out of the question.
Mm-hmm.
Also, police tend to be inept in television, and
This is true too.
But
it could just be a trope of TV. But yeah, there's a lot.
To the point of him being dressed in black, the opening credits are very, very dark with the cult members, presumably the cult, that we see when that gate opens, all the figures in black, that would fit in. This darkness coming for them, both literal and figurative.
Yeah. And talking about light and dark, I had been thinking about the darkness when Leanne says that the darkness within her is growing.
Yes.
And what does that mean? And, wondering if perhaps she absorbs the darkness of others. And maybe that's part of the reason why. And I may have said that. I don't know if I said this in the podcast we just did, or if it was just between us when we were talking, but
it may have been just now.
Yeah, but just that perhaps she's absorbing the darkness from them, and that's weighing heavier on her. And in turn, we're seeing more lightness with, Julian and Dorothy and Sean. And so perhaps that's part of where that darkness is coming from. How does she harness her power? Where does that come from?
We know that it's tied to her emotions. She did not want Julian to break up with her. I mean, she says no to his trying to break things off with her. And then when he goes on that trip with his new girlfriend, she presumably creates the seagull attack, which I thought was very funny.
But I think that I don't think that she I mean, if she had created it, okay. So are you saying that she does not know how to control the darkness within her, so that in that moment the darkness took over and created that seagull attack, and she was basically in some type of a fugue state, which is why we saw the tear, which is why she just was sort of madly drawing, and then she comes out of it and realizes that this part of her created that? Or was it like her seeing it?
I watched that scene over before we started this episode. Yeah, she goes in like a fugue state, and you see the tear roll down her cheek. And then when it's over, she smiles. So I interpreted that as she's upset, she's unhappy, she's jealous. And then when it's done, there's a lightness about her.
She let it go.
Right. The bad feelings are lifted and they've been channeled through this attack, but it's not, she doesn't choose to do it. It's like, I have an emotion and it being expressed physically, not doing it on purpose.
And I can't control it.
And then when she gets the
way the roof falls down upon Julian. It's like, she's not doing it, but it happens.
She is. And that also ties in what M. Night said about the fact that her and the house are
intertwined.
Intertwined. Love it. That's great.
That's what I think. But
I think you are right.
And then she gets the confirmation of it, seeing his face all cut up, and she's like, oh.
It's not happy like, oh good, I maimed my sex partner. It's
like, oh, that's where it went. Like that's where my energy went.
My power's back.
Yeah. I do still have power of some kind. Or,
visibly upset at not being able to resurrect the moths.
Right. Do you think that the cult in their minds were they trying to teach her how to harness her powers for good? But and now that she's broken free, that's part of it, is that the concern, right? And we probably even talked about this some last season, but the concern is that
she's a
she's
threat.
vulnerable to that. She's
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable to
Yeah.
having her powers used for darkness if she doesn't have somebody that's trying to keep her in the light.
I'd forgotten all about that.
I think she's unfocused is the thing.
Yeah.
Like being free and far enough away from it to be able to develop her own system. She
Too
doesn't really know how.
Yeah, unfocused. Yes.
Yeah, like learning how to like not like make up your own religion, but like take whatever you were born with, like raised with, and being like, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that, and like changing how you apply the things you learn from
Yeah.
rigid.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah.
So it's coming out in strange ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the while being nervous about impending chaos. Yeah.
I know. Okay. And then the other thing that I think is maybe something that, to think about too, is like, what do you think that she is afraid of? Right. If she's saying that we need to be afraid of this cult, what are we supposed to be afraid of? Death? Them, if we're right, like, are we supposed to be afraid that they're going to kill them, but maybe they're already dead anyway? Like, what is this fear supposed to be of?
I think it's that I don't think anybody's gonna get hurt because what's for what? What is the
Right,
reason?
exactly. Yeah.
So it's probably just that they won't have the baby anymore, and then she'll have to go put up with whatever and possibly get killed because
Mhm.
don't they have evidence of killing other?
She talks about starting a war.
Mm-hmm.
And when Aunt Josephine comes, who's presumably in charge, because Leanne asks the burglar who's in charge now.
Mm-hmm.
Aunt Josephine was a pretty formidable character.
Was she though?
Well, I mean,
when I rewatched it, I thought,
they put her in that role pretty quick.
Not maybe in action, but
I know, yeah, like in presence and like.
As soon as her veil was off and her vulnerability was revealed,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was not scary anymore.
But she came to kill.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Probably just Leanne though, and then they would take the baby.
Right. But if you start a war,
it's like a bigger deal. It's just maybe she feels that way because she left and like they're so intense with her. Maybe she doesn't realize that they only mean it's about her.
Well, maybe she's worried that they will now view the Turners as being aligned with her. So they'll come after the Turners too.
Yeah, you used my magic to give them a baby. For sure.
Well, yeah, maybe come and kill the Turners and then take the baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it seems to reach out a little bit, like with the murder, and then the other little strange things that seem to happen, like around them, like in the town.
I mean, look at the Marinos. If they were a part of it,
exactly. Even if they're not, like whatever it was touched them.
I think we should touch on something that's been all over Reddit. The image in the phone case when Jerica's being fed for the first time, or not fed for the first time, fed real for the first time. You don't see Jerica's face. You see that image that some have thought looked like the thing of meat that was rotting when the real Jerica was found. I thought it was just his bib. What were you saying about it, Alicia?
I think
it's a spoon.
Yeah, I
it's
think
a
this is
used
one where
spoon.
we're reaching. Yeah, I think it's the spoon. I think it's just a simple reflection of something. It's so hard to see to kind of discern what it is anyway. I don't personally think that it's meant to be anything like a clue or something crazy.
Well, it's just a food spoon, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Otherwise, that's pretty dark.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that we don't think that it's the rotting ham.
The ham was in the trailer though, but definitely.
Yeah. But just that the premise of that would be sort of another big thing, right? And we were talking earlier you said, okay, well, if that's the case, then we're all sitting there with this rotting ham and everybody's delusional thinking that this baby, is a real baby,
Right.
but it's really not, so, which I thought was a good point, right? What is it?
Mhm.
If that were the case, then what does that really mean? And what direction, it's kind of a big left turn if it's something like that. So
Right.
it does seem like a bit of a stretch for it to be that.
If all the action were just in the home, that would be one thing, but they're now taking Jericho out to the beach,
Right.
and he's getting admirers. There's a woman looking down on him, oohing and or cooing, and so
Mhm.
she's not doing it a piece of dead meat. It's
So I love it. I get it. I love speculation, but that one I really think was probably a stretch. I think it's
I
just the
think that's
reflection.
probably yeah.
And then
it's
the
almost
other thing that I said too is that the other thing I was thinking is that, like, and I think I mentioned this to Aunt just in one of
Mhm.
our conversations, but it's you can't have babies on set for very long.
Right.
Right. So it could be that when they were shooting that shot, because the baby wasn't in the shot, that the baby wasn't
yeah.
actually there. Right.
That's a good
Mhm.
point. Yes.
So that reflection could just be, maybe they put a sack of something there just
Sack
for
of flour.
eyeline, but it wasn't ever meant to be a clue. It was just that
Right.
they couldn't have the baby on set. It was that
Mhm.
was a way to, like, cut down on what they needed. And they
Right.
weren't thinking that anybody's gonna, be screenshotting that tiny, tiny little moment. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it could have been that the baby was not there and that there was something there in its place, but not because it was some big secret mystery for the show. It's just you can only have babies on set for an hour, 2, 3 hours a day, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I like that theory. I'm
Yeah.
going to go with that. I think that makes the most sense.
For sure.
So when the episode, I guess, when the episode ends, what do we end with? We ended with the burglar and the cop and kind of,
And
being
then
left with,
she says they're gonna start installing cameras. So
yeah.
Yes. Which
here we
they've already
go.
done. They did that before, but this
Well,
was when they were spying
a
on.
little less officially. Yeah.
Do you guys think that Julian's new girlfriend is a cult member infiltrating?
I mean, it's still really early, but I like that thought. I like that idea.
Hmm.
It'd be interesting if this girlfriend was a foil to Natalie, like if they're on opposite sides, whether Natalie was good or bad. Right? Like if Natalie was good, then
Right.
maybe Vera is bad. I say all this loosely with quotation marks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. We don't know yet, but that might be interesting. I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it, though. That's yeah.
We'll need to see more of her.
Hmm. Yeah.
I wonder if she's a little too easy with the weirdness around her.
Yeah.
Whereas someone more basic would be like, what's going on? It's an odd scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's a little strange that he would meet somebody, in rehab where he was at briefly, and they would start dating. I know it's not, out of the question, but
No, I've
most
heard
people
that
know that you're
happen
not
quite a
supposed to
bit,
do
though.
that, right?
Yeah.
Not that, obviously people do it, but you're not supposed to.
Right, it's actively discouraged, frowned upon, and they
Exactly. Yeah.
separate.
Yeah. So the fact that, like, Sean and Dorothy, like, referred to that as a positive thing, you know what I mean? Where Dorothy was like, who knows? Maybe this is the one. Maybe this one will stick. I thought that's not really something that's encouraged. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, it's hopeful, right? Again, it's sort of like hopeful optimism that
just be another
we're
distraction.
not accustomed to, or distraction. And yeah.
Right. You get wrapped up in something and you meet somebody and they're also wrapped up in something, and then
Right.
everybody's just wrapped up in something.
But also that Julian's actively sleeping with Leanne and developing this new relationship.
Right.
Yeah. Which
Or
is like they sort of
away.
throw in there as like a by the way, we've been sleeping together. Like, wait, what?
Yeah. For 3 months now. And I don't want it to stop. I like it.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Sean and Dorothy, have affection for one another. And be kind to one another and joke with each other without it feeling mean. It was nice to see that flirtation and that spark that they probably had before, life started to railroad them. So that was just enjoyable to watch. And I think, I don't know, in a way, I feel like maybe the show had to do that. You have to have a reason to go like, why are these two people together? Well, why have they stayed together? Why has he stayed around with her? That, that there's love there. And we talked about that a lot last season about, there's love there clearly, but they're a team, but sometimes you'd go like, why, right? Why on earth are these people still together? And I felt like we got to see more of that in this episode. And I'm sure we'll get to see a little bit more of that as the season progresses too, until
for sure.
whatever inevitable turn occurs. But
two things that come to mind. One is that it makes me a little nervous. If they were a real life couple, I would be nervous around the fact that their happiness seems to be determined by their fertility.
Right. If they have the baby, they're like fine. Yeah. And when they don't, they're like more wrapped up in their own, like she goes to work and he's cooking for her. Right.
They're not fine at all.
With each other.
Yeah. The other thing that came to mind was that their dynamic appears to be one where Dorothy is the light. She's the star. And Sean is the worshiper. And when Dorothy was not doing well, they weren't doing well because she wasn't performing her role.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And Sean would feel guilty for things that were like happening to him that could be good.
Right.
Yes, exactly. But couples have dynamics, and their dynamic seems to be that Sean happily indulges Dorothy's, kind of egotistical, everything looks good on me. You're such a pussy. Ha ha ha. With Sean being the beta. And when Dorothy couldn't perform her role, Sean didn't like it. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I agree.
You like lose yourself because he's so tied to.
It's like just be bright and shiny again. Yeah.
Right.
One of the things that I felt like while I was watching this, we've had so many theories about what's going on, and even psychologically going, okay, is Sean the one that really has the real maybe problem here, and we don't know it, and this is going to be a little bait and switch. We think it's Dorothy, but really it's Sean. But one of the things that I felt as I watched this episode is that some of that just didn't matter. At least for right now, right? Like it just didn't, it was like, all right, it's almost like we hit reset. Right. Not that those things won't come up again, but you really felt like, okay, we're sitting down fresh, we've hit reset.
Like tonally, it's like,
which was kind of like nice in a way. It felt like we could go, okay, we could take a breath and go, all right, we're gonna sit with this for a second and see where this goes from here. And I'm sure it will all tie back in. But it was kind of nice to feel like there was a somewhat of a reset with this. Yeah. Which I also think was purposeful too, because some of those establishing shots at the beginning of this episode mirrored some of the establishing shots from the very first episode, like the one with Leanne, sort of being OCD with setting her things out.
Right.
And so it was cool to see some of those things in a different light, right? Because when we saw it in the first one, you're sort of going, what is going on here? And this is all creepy. But in this episode, it all feels normal. Like, okay, things are back to normal, right? So it's just, it was a really interesting juxtaposition.
I totally agree.
Is there anything else that we should cover or touch on before we wrap this one up?
I think we covered quite a bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'm good with where we are. I'm enjoying the having Servant back.
Yes.
I really liked the first episode. I'm getting big Hitchcock vibes. I think we're gonna have a really exciting kind of thrillery season ahead.
Yeah, I liked the Hitchcock vibes too quite a bit. And that trailer is terrifying. So
oh my god.
Oof, it's so good.
Whatever's going on in that attic
We could do a whole video breaking the trailer down. I don't know we will, but we could if we wanted to. It's a good trailer.
Great trailer.
I'm sure we'll be getting to this stuff soon enough.
But yeah, we'll be back, of course, for our, our discussion about episode 2. And, hopefully if we go along, we'll have different little videos that pop up here and there that, some of them might be funny and sad, some satirical stuff. Some of them might be, discussing topics in particular. We'll see, but we'll be back each week to talk about the episode and hopefully fill in with some other cool things to talk about throughout the next remaining 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
Goodbye,
guys. Well, thank you guys. It's always wonderful. I always love talking to you. We all
you too.
enjoy chatting about this show. It's so good, and I always look forward to it. Thank you guys so much for listening. This is Servant Decoded, and this is Alicia, Liz, and Ant.
Yes, hello, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.